Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to call the regular meeting to order. Remind you to turn your cell phones to silent or vibrate, and then let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chris, would you take the roll, please? Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Mayor Lazio.
Here.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from regular meeting number 18 on June 15th, 2021, and special meeting number 19 on June 22nd, 2021 as presented. Approve updated salary schedule effective July 1, 2021. Approve updated job description for city clerk. Approve the purchase of a new stainless steel screw auger from Vulcan Industries Incorporated totaling $7,197 for the water pollution control facility. Approve the purchase and installation of a 20-inch mag meter from Electric Pump of Des Moines, Iowa, totaling $19,993 for the water pollution control facility. Resolution number 134, 2021, setting July 20th, 2021 as the date of a public hearing on the disposition of city-owned property located at 202 South Ransom. Resolution number 136, 2021, authorizing payment for renewal of the city workers' compensation insurance and Chapter 411 administrative agreement for July 1, 2021 until June 30th, 2022, and the amount of $124,684, and payment to Iowa Municipalities Workers' Compensation Association. Resolution number 137, 2021, setting July 20th, 2021 as the date of a public hearing on the disposition of city-owned property located at 313 Allison Avenue. Resolution number 144, 2021, setting July 20th, 2021 as the date of a public hearing on the disposition of city-owned property located at 915 East Division. Cigarette permit applications for Ottumwa Grocery LLC at 129 East 2nd Street. Beer and/or liquor applications for Courtside Bar and Grill with outdoor service area at 2511 North Court. Smoke and Joe's Tobacco and Liquor Outlet number 5 at 1115 Albia Road. All applications pending final inspections.
Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers.
With some discussion, yes.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilman Myers, recognized.
If I may, item 2, the updated salary schedule, and I was glad to see that we have that updated. And I still had a question, and so Administrator Rath was helpful this morning to explain once again. My question being, now that we're updating schedules and everything, could I finally get a list of the total salaries of employees? And with the help of Councilman Rowe this afternoon and his finance background, I have a little better understanding of the components in the middle, pensions and other items, that there has to be some care in what's presented. But I guess that total at the end is something I was still looking for, and probably will ask about it again in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item C in our agenda, we need approval for tonight's agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Item D, we'd like to call on Phil Rath, our city administrator, to give us an update. So Phil, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Mayor. So we have just a couple things that are listed on the agenda, and one thing that wasn't on the agenda that I just kind of wanted to mention that came up over the weekend. There's been a lot of commentary on social media regarding the city's fireworks display that occurred this weekend. And it's my understanding that it was not a cost savings measure as far as the display. There were some technical difficulties that occurred with that presentation, and we'll be working with the contractor get that remedied and try to get some kind of credit or other obligation, maybe pending for looking ahead. So we'll be looking to address that with that company and hopefully be made whole on that. The first thing that's listed actually on the agenda here is the website improvements. So we have been working with Neapolitan Labs to update, to give a little bit of a facelift to the website, to make sure that it's more mobile friendly. A lot of people use the website more on their cell phones than on a desktop or laptop device. So trying to make sure that people can find the information they're looking for. We have added a translate feature on there, and coming soon in the near future, we'll be looking to add survey features back to the website like we had a little over a year and a half ago, I think. So be looking forward to those. Those are not scientific in nature, but sometimes can be fun, sometimes can be informational to staff or the elected officials on just general feelings on things. And then finally, wanted to just make an announcement, talking with the mayor and staff about a variety of things, and wanted to try to bring back a town hall style gathering, informational meeting with the community. This is not a council meeting or a work session per se, although any of the elected officials are invited to attend, as well as staff. Looking at having the first one of these, or reboot these, on August 5th, which is a Thursday, at 5:30 p.m. The place will be determined at a future time, but if you want to mark that on your calendar as an opportunity to share with myself and I believe the mayor any topics or areas of concern that you have, what you like that's happening in the city, what you'd like to see more of, there's an opportunity for that. August 5th at 5:30 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Phil.
Bless you.
Item E on our agenda, we always give citizens a chance for input. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to address the council tonight? Okay, seeing none stepping up, we'll go to item F.
Project update for City Hall improvements. Recommendation, provide an update to City Council members on the status of the City Hall improvements project.
We have with us city engineer Phil Bergmeyer. So Phil, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'd just like to introduce Mike Drehos and Alan Varney from Wilhelm Hoffman Associates. They were contracted by the city to do some preliminary investigation and come up with a plan for improving City Hall. And I'll turn it over to you guys.
Good. Welcome, gentlemen. We're happy to have you here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Al Varney with Willett Hoffman Associates. This is Mike Drehos. He's with West Plains Engineering. We've partnered on many projects together. Myself went in a previous life under a company called AMET, and West Plains been working together for 20 years. So we've got a lot of history. Tonight, we have the final report that we have developed regarding our recommendations for improvements here at the City Hall. I want to go through the architectural part, the preliminary part of the report and the architectural part, and then Mike will talk a little bit about mechanical, electrical, and then we'll finish it up and talk about the costs, which is basically the last page of the report itself. So I will leaf through the slides here. I'm hoping I do this right. Nope, went the wrong way. I guess I have to go the other way. Oh, there we go. The report, we start off telling you a background about how we got started on the project, dates that we came here, and that sort of thing. Things that we discovered. You see under there it says analysis in the basement, and some of you might have had a chance to read this report, so this is going over it rather quickly. But you can see in the basement things that we found and that we felt needed to be improved, changed, modified, that sort of thing. Also then on the first floor we had identified, and that was one of the project charges, was to look at the first floor towards reinstating the historic first floor corridor that used to be basically serving the post office when this had a post office down on that level. The second floor, things that we found there that need to be improved, the occupancy staying pretty much the same as it is now, council chambers included, and then the third floor with engineering and the other offices that are up there. Mike will talk a little bit more in detail about the mechanical systems and evaluating the 4 that were offered in the Michaels report and 2 hybrids that West Plains had developed for comparison, settling on, at least initially here, our recommendations for that last option, option 6. So you can see the options, these articulated there. And then the electrical systems, the improvements that we felt were necessary there, not only to serve the new mechanical systems, but also to serve backup for the lighting and basically bring the building up to the 20th century. Well, it was in the 21st century. There we go. And then finally, we identified that we got the plans in the back, the cost opinion, and our recommendations. Now, one of the first tasks that we had was to take the plans that we had, which were the old 1910 plans, put those on CAD. So we had those that we can turn over to the city when we're done with the report here. And then update those plans to reflect what we have here today. So these plans, the 4 that we have in the report here, these first 4 sheets represent what is actually here today, including whatever additions or changes had been made. So you're seeing the basement as it exists right now, seeing the first floor as it exists right now, and how the corridors and the offices lay out. Second floor, the council chambers where we're standing here, and then the main corridor going through there. And lastly, the 3rd floor and how that stacks up. Going to back to the basement now, what we've identified, if you looked at that list that we had at the start and the recommendations where we saw deficiencies and things that needed to be modified. You can see with the light color blue, the areas where we felt as a minimum, you ought to be making some changes. You can see the stairway that leads up to the backside of the break room on level 1. You need an enclosure there from a fire safety standpoint. One of the things we did determine is that this building will not need a sprinkler system at the size that it is now. That can be a decision you may want to make at some time in the future, and allied with your insurance company or what have you, but it's not required from a building code standpoint. So we put an enclosure around that stair. We put an enclosure at the stair over by the elevator. We modified the restroom, what right now is just a single restroom, made it into 2 restrooms so that depending on how you occupy that basement, you've got ADA compliant restrooms available. And then the other big blue area to the bottom left of that sheet represents improvements to that space for purposes of an IT workshop and storage area. The first floor has the bulk of the remodeling that we foresaw on this plan. The main part of it involved reinstating the corridor, the historic corridor, to represent or reflect what it was like during the post office days for this building. You can see the conference rooms shown more central, and the one is lined up with the south entrance so that people can come up through the south entrance and they'd be right at a conference room. The other offices, we had opportunity to visit with staff and get input from them about what they would like to see in terms of office layout, configuration, sizes, that sort of thing. And the rest of that you see is reflected in that. Plus then the 2 restroom areas, we took a larger amount of space because the first floor has a bigger occupancy than what restrooms were provided in that area. And you have restrooms that then become ADA compliant and serve the occupancy that is available, or that would be in the spaces. And then the white areas are spaces that we just basically left as is. On the this floor, on the second floor, the only things that we saw that we needed to modify to bring it into at least code compliance was the backside of the council chambers to provide handicap accessibility, the 2 restrooms to make them handicap accessible, ADA compliant. And if you noticed, a little blue area off to the left of the north entrance, that's an area of refuge since if there's a handicapped person in this building, They got to have two ways out. One gets you over to the stair by the elevator. The other takes you out to the landing, but they have to have an area of refuge. That's the terminology used in the building code. They have to have a place where they can go out, push a button, and it lets the fire department know that they are out there so that the fire department can help them. Let me back up once here. Whoop, backed up too far. On the first floor, real quickly, to the south entrance, you'll see a little blue area outside the building, and that's representing putting in a new landing and a ramp so that you have handicap accessibility from the sidewalks and so forth to City Hall, from the handicap parking out over that way to the southwest, to be able to get you up in the building if you're on a wheelchair without requiring any kind of assistance going upstairs. Oh, I did it again. I'm sorry. Okay, and then the third floor, this is probably the one that required the least amount of effort in terms to make it code compliant. And we are showing the restrooms being modified to be ADA compliant. Another area of refuge, basically expanding the landing at the fire escape that you have going out to the east there, so that there's an area of refuge there for a handicapped person to be able to go out, and modifying that door. And then a handicap lift, chair lift, within the engineering department to get you up to that loft area.
I saw that in your notes and I read that and I wondered, why do we need to have a lift there when we have floors or conference rooms on the first floor that we could accommodate?
You can accommodate, but you also have a break room up there and a conference room up there, and it's a matter of,
So that'd be more for a handicap employee?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
'Cause I was thinking
That's
if
the
it was-
intent. You have to be able to provide full handicap accessibility for, if you will, all comers.
Okay,
Employees
thank
and,
Thank you.
okay, and then we also included a set of plans that just basically, if you look at the little legend down there, that just kind of show the spaces, how they would be used, whether they're storage, which is the bulk of the basement is storage or that sort of use. The first floor, you can see the green is kind of the public areas and access, offices in the tan, and then blue is sort of the back corridor. The upper floor, now you've got just the main blue corridor, and then the other spaces. I'm not sure, I think that's supposed to be tan and it just doesn't show up on this plan. And then on the, yeah, those are supposed to be tan. They just don't show up very well on this image here, but basically office spaces. Both these floors are office spaces. Okay, with that, I want to turn it over to Mike, let him discuss mechanical electrical considerations.
Thanks, Al. We started this report by utilizing
It's the one on the right.
I'm not going backwards,
Oh, you want to go back?
to evaluate. It's not going very well. All right. So we had Michaels, who started an initial study on evaluating some systems available here. We went through their systems and looked at them. Some of them simply, they put a number to, but won't function. We know that in these historic buildings from our experience as engineers, not energy consultants, is that what may be a good energy efficient system doesn't fit the building. For example, the historic ones with high ceilings, big windows, there's no way to put heat at the perimeter of the building without having radiators, whether it be hot water or steam. It just won't work. Yeah, it's going to be cold. We have a lot of offices throughout the whole building that have high ceilings, nowhere to put ductwork, and we don't want to definitely put in lane ceilings. So how do we get heat on the outside windows? It doesn't work unless we have a system that somewhat incorporates perimeter radiation because of the nature of the building, the lack of insulation, and the older windows. So the geothermal is one system that they looked at, system one. That was the most high cost, but it required tearing up the whole green space out here, putting in wells, which requires more cost to beautify it again, and then years of maintaining to get it back to normal, as well as it still didn't allow any heating at the windows. Variable flow, number 2, that system, very energy efficient, but doesn't utilize your natural gas cost, favor in this town. The first 2 use all electric. Variable flow, once again, a very diverse system, but it doesn't get heat at the perimeter of the building. 4-pipe fan coil, again, this one can use natural gas for heating and hot water, but it doesn't still provide you heating at the perimeter walls. The baseline existing is what we have now. Right now, the building has really no air conditioning on the second floor, every air conditioning on third, air conditioning on first, and then nothing really on first floor. So they have 5 systems. Baseline it was make what is right now, just make it newer. Well, it's cheapest, but it's not going to provide everyone air conditioning. It's not going to provide anyone good temperature control. So we can't have 2 offices or 1 office that have each individual thermostats. So that one we felt was a pricing exercise that was just to show you what a cheap one is, but it really can't function. Hybrid 1 was one that they came up with, which was using the baseline system that is being perimeter heating, but putting more little air handlers everywhere. Once again, that has some merit to it because it's still using natural gas heat for using the perimeter, but it's also putting air conditioning in more zones. Right now, we have 5 thermostats in the whole building. The rest have window air conditioners. This will put you in at least doing 20 or so smaller air handlers in the building that provide good comfort control. So that one has some merit in hybrid too. It doesn't have quite the zonability. The equipment's about bigger. And also we have to somehow provide air to the space, which provides, ducts everywhere, a lot bigger ductwork than which we really want, especially when we want to maintain no ceilings in spaces and have to put everything back down a closet and conceal stuff. So although it has merit, it doesn't fit a building that wants to have no ceilings in it. We proposed hybrid 2, which is a system that has small concealed fan coils in each room that runs off refrigerant electric, but we also combine it with perimeter heating system on it. So we can have a hot water boiler, natural gas, still replace the radiators with hot water, and in some cases where they're historic, we can retrofit them to run hot water through those radiators or provide a different radiator that maybe still looks historic, but as a function of hot water. The tenants for the offices that not try to reuse the old radiators, because some are bad and blanked off anyway, to put convectors on the walls, hot water convectors underneath the windows that isn't as historic as the public areas. Try to keep those maintaining radiators for the look of the historic, building. So that's just a combination of both. And then the fan coils will be refrigerant type, variable flow, high efficient, using energy to transfer area to area with concealed fan coils that are going to be behind the closet areas. Each little wing has little hallways going back to them for first, second, third floor. We put little drop ceilings in there, which we can do and still make it look historic, but without impacting the main corridors and get them all tucked up in there with still allowing the room itself to have the volume of space that is historic. In this room here, we would replace a noisy one with a quieter one and have it on both ends so you can keep air conditioning and maintain noise level that's more realistic to having good sound and still keep it operational. So that's the intent for that one there. The top floor, they have 2 furnaces right now up in the attic space. We can consider doing that again, or we can put them in the hallways like we mentioned before and get them more maintainable from the halls instead of climbing up in the attic to work on them. That's what we came up with for our systems for evaluation. We recommend system 5 and 6. We think the other ones are just an option that was thrown out there, but don't really meet the good comfort control, temperature controllability in this historic building because they don't utilize the perimeter system for hot water and the natural gas usage that we find we understand is favorable, for buildings. From that, I'll go on to.
Okay, just a few final items here.
The drawings we're going to go through, but I have drawings showing the proposed layout for mechanical.
This is kind of giving you an idea of what hybrid system 2 might look like in terms of placement of mechanical units and how the distribution would occur. There's the first floor, based on the floor plan that we had developed, again, with staff input. Second floor, as Mike was talking about earlier, you can see the units are tucked into this to the back areas and then feeding out to the areas plus perimeter heat. And finally, the third floor, same sort of thing. The electrical, when we get to the costs, you'll see these diagrams are basically talking about lighting and changing out the lighting and going with LED type fixtures. So you'll see that in the cost opinion. And these diagrams illustrate where they are either historic looking fixtures to blend with the historic areas that we retain and those areas that we modify to more like lay-in type of ceilings. The type of lighting then would be lay-in type of fixtures. Second floor. Yep, there we go. And third floor. Now the cost opinion. The cost opinion is broken into each floor, and the scope items are basically reiterating the work items that we had identified earlier, and that we tried to compile them all together and apply cost to. The costs that you see there are based on a variety of things, either cost per square foot or costs of units that both Mike and I have experience with in terms of previous projects. One thing I probably should have done, you can see right at the top, we got the electrical service entrance and the fire alarm separated out. So keep that in mind here as we go down through those. You can see all the various tasks. You can see the things that we had identified that we would do. And so we're trying to pull this all together and give you one big number that represents the whole thing. Now, when you get to the bottom of the initial list, you can see it says add to everything else, the HVAC amount. Mike had come up with the cost for option or scenario 6, the hybrid number 2, and that comes out to basically $1.3 million. Going back up, you add to that the electrical and the fire alarm services, which is about another $110,000. And before we do those other things there, let me try and explain that real quick. So you got $1.3 million and you add another $110,000. That represents the base mechanical and electrical upgrades that we see for the building. I know that was one of the questions. How much is the mechanical electrical? That does not include lighting. Now the lighting is spread throughout all those other areas. So if you want us to break that out, well, we can, you can shake this around and come up with quantities the way whichever way you wish to see it. But that at least gives you an idea of what the mechanical electrical is. And if you look at that first subtotal there, 2.6 million, basically we're talking about half of that cost, a little more than half of that cost, about 60%, is in the mechanical and electrical upgrades for the building. Now, the next couple of items on this cost opinion represent how we approach developing a cost opinion. We showed all of these various things as subcontract costs. When you have a subcontractor doing his costs and then you add them all together, the general contractor has to put together overhead and profit and general conditions and that sort of thing to make one full project number. And that's usually around 25%. So that's what that number is. And then we get another subtotal. And then you see a thing I have in there, 50% contingency. We don't know what we don't know. That's what that represents. Okay. And I'll be honest with you right now, with the volatility of construction costs and so forth that we've been seeing in other projects, ones that we've been bidding up in Cedar Rapids, for instance, and so forth. You will probably need every bit of that. Plus that also covers just things that you stumble across as you're doing the remodeling. There's invariably going to be some things that, oh, well, while we're here, we should do this. Or while we're here, we should do that, and so forth. This is a schematic design cost opinion. We have not been able to get into serious detail on all of these things to be able to refine it much more than what we're showing you there. So we come down, we have the bottom line being roughly 4.9. Design costs, then to translate all of the information, however much of a project you decide to do here, but if you decide to do the 4.9 or so million dollar project, design costs are going to be roughly 200 and I think it's 290 something on that order. And you can see that we backed out this schematic design effort. Typical schematic design is 15% of the total. So a total design fee would be roughly 7%. You back out the 15%, and this is the net result that we've added onto it. So at this stage, we believe this is a $5.2 million project. You can see then down below are the relative costs of the 6 systems that Mike evaluated, and with the hybrid 2 down at the bottom, the 1.3 million for that. One other question that we know that came up had to do with phasing. We hadn't tried to grapple with phasing yet. And that is all because, it depends on how much you decide you want to actually proceed with this project. As I look at it, based on the floor plans, you would have at least 3 major phases. I think it'll be 3, without looking at it in super detail. And that is because you'll have to do the first floor in 2 phases just to get it out of the way, to get it remodeled out of the way. And you'll have to put in the base mechanical, electrical, the front head end systems for those, so that when you do subsequent remodelings on the upper floors and so forth, you can just simply tie into them. So I would see at least 3 major phases involved in this project. Now, I'm not sure if there were other questions. I think at this point security. Security is one thing we did not put in a separate thought for adding door security for your major public corridors. It wouldn't be a hard thing to do. You don't have a lot of doors that lead into your back areas from the major corridors. So it would be a matter of adding door readers to each of the doors so that you can cordon off the general public from all of your offices and so forth. But this is something that we've seen crop up in many other buildings. City Hall up in Cedar Rapids has controls on every single one of their doors from the public corridors with card readers. So that would be something that we could add on. I hadn't tried to figure out what that cost would be, but it's a cost per door type of thing, and it would tie into the fire alarm and security system that would all tie together. With that.
Okay, I'd like to invite council to ask any questions. I know this is a informational part, but feel free to ask anything. We're just getting information for the first time tonight, so any questions, council?
I had.
Go ahead.
I was wondering, knowing timing of available funds through the state right now, grant opportunities tied to COVID relief, is there, when you're looking at phases, is there opportunities to do HVAC kind of on its own, maybe sooner than other things, knowing the timeliness of funds that might be available right now to cities?
Yes, I think with that though, we have to do electrical upgrade with it. So we had the power to run the air conditioning system, but definitely like most of the stuff that we're doing on 2 and up are not changed that much. We'll have to later on retrofit the bathrooms and we do that work. When we get 2 and up done, first floor, we can go ahead and put them in and just kind of have to renovate the ductwork when we do the historic portion of the items, but that can be done a separate job.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
So a couple quick questions. From what I understood in reading and some conversations that had been had before, when you're looking at the difference between the systems, specifically the one that you're recommending in the baseline system, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but isn't the if we just do the baseline system, we're basically just upgrading the problems that we have now. We're not actually fixing anything per se, right?
And we're not adding air conditioning on the floors that don't have it.
Okay, perfect.
Now, the hybrid one does expand upon the system we have now, but make more of them and get everything covered.
Okay. And I'm curious about the LED because I've been involved in a couple other projects that LED has been a consideration, and ultimately it ended up saving the bill payer a lot of money.
Yep.
Do you have any idea that if we did switch all the lighting around in here to LED, what the return on investment would be on that?
It's a little more challenging when we're dealing with historic fixtures, architectural type fixtures. They can, right now is not time to look. I'll tell you what, they cost 3 times as much for the fixture now than it did 2 months ago. Just with the way the market is now, as Al mentioned, it's very volatile. A regular building retrofit with, Trafford sconces that are simplistic, it can be a lot quicker payback. We have those numbers. I just can't give you numbers on trying to match a fixture to these type fixtures that have right now. We're maybe using just LED bulbs, but doing a true LED fixture with its own balance of stuff that we need to dive in a little bit more. I'm not answering your question by saying there's more challenges on a historic building to have numbers to look at.
Okay.
We can share you what we would normally see on a normal job, and then we can maybe add a year to it and see what that's like.
Okay.
And if I might add, for the city of Cedar Rapids, there was, I don't want to say extensive, but there was at least 10 or 15% available rebates from the energy company for the total costs of all the new light fixtures that were replaced. And so there was quite a few light fixtures there that we changed out to LED for that, and we're able to take advantage of those rebates because of that.
Okay. And my last question, specific to the electrical work, am I correct that it really wouldn't matter what one of those projects we chose, that we would still have to do the electrical upgrades to accommodate the systems and to be up to code?
Yeah, because right now you don't have adequate air conditioning on 3rd floor and none on 2nd floor except for window air conditioners.
Okay.
So to get everything cooled, we're going to have a lot bigger load on the building.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Council? Bob?
Did you, Matt? No, I'm good. Oh, yeah, I guess initially, and this isn't going to you fellas, it's water report, but I guess as a council person, I thought initially we approved HVAC system, and then I know Mark was invited to work with the group on looking at it further, but 5.2 million, and I guess, Kayla, that whether it goes back to you, but I see down here funding source, there's nothing. So I'll come back to that and what you project as possible funding sources. Also, gentlemen, there was a question that I'm not a furnace person, but I question a little bit, if we did nothing more than improve the HVAC system, it has to help, because at times, winter and summer, it doesn't work. So just to put in a good quality new system would have to help a pretty good degree, wouldn't it?
It depends. Right now, we're not air conditioning 2nd floor.
Right.
So that there wasn't a good solution, even the old method. There's no ceilings to hide things at, but we can do like one of the systems mentioned here, and that's embellish, replace new, but have more smaller ones so we have better comfort control. Right now, the whole 1st floor is on one unit. There's only one thermostat.
Right.
So we have a lot of challenges with who controls that thermostat. And
How well we know.
hiring employees that, want to work in a place that they can't have some level of comfort control is challenging. And so improving it will help it a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why we say that the last two expand what we have now to make it new and get it fully covered makes sense. But also making sure we still utilize the heating on the perimeter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So getting back to, are we just premature here to ask about funding sources?
I don't think, I mean, we haven't, been directed that we can move forward with looking at funding sources yet. The premise, started, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago that we needed to update the HVAC system here in the building. And last year, that it was brought to our attention that the funding that was put aside to update the HVAC system was there already previously before I was even here. There was a CIP issuance done on that. However, there was never a schematic done. And so last year when we had the conversation about our capital improvement funds, we specifically said that we were going to put some CIP money aside for a schematic of the building, and which included the HVAC system. So having said that, that's what these gentlemen were chosen to do with their company, with a group of people, and I don't know who is in that group, but so now we have this schematic and we have a value associated with a couple choices with an HVAC system, and also with some of the other renovations for City Hall. So now the process would be, I would assume, you guys give us some direction, council give us some direction on what that next process is. So there is funding out there for HVAC specific funding through a couple different entities. One of those being up to $500,000 with a cash match, which we would have that cash match with that CIP that has already been approved. There's also other funding available to do a remodel to restore City Hall back to its historic value. And of course, as the finance person, my goal would be to try to fund not only the HVAC system, so that way all of the employees are comfortable in City Hall and we're being efficient in City Hall with that HVAC and the electrical update through the funding that we already have and applying for grants. But if we can get some of this other stuff done, remodeling done that they're talking about through grants, then I don't know why we wouldn't do it if it was grant money.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And I just would say though, but for me to make a decision on any aspects of these, I would need to know how solid some of these potential sources are. Personally, but anyway, that's me.
Well, I think we'd have to apply for it in order to know.
I mean, to be looking at funding sources, you need to have this type of plan.
Right.
To then know what, on an itemized scale, what types of levels you're looking at and what types of things. So then you can identify potential funding sources from there. It's that chicken and egg kind of thing, but this is what you need to then start pursuing and making a plan on what funding sources to pursue.
But Holly, I think, we've got options, we've got hybrids, we've got it all. So why couldn't we start looking at what the potentials are for funding?
That would be the next step from having this plan. I mean, that is the next step from there.
All right, thank you.
One other question. When you did your evaluation, did you consider the heat loss or transfer through our windows? My office, for example, you can see the drapes move in the wintertime and the summertime. They're very inefficient. You can feel a draft all the time. So if we're going to upgrade, it seems to me to be kind of counterproductive to upgrade the system if we have outside air coming in.
Well, let me throw that in the category of we don't know what we don't know.
We know we have a problem.
Facetious. What I'm saying is that the study, it was a purely interior study. We did
Okay.
not study the enclosure.
Okay.
Things like windows that are leaky and so forth, that would be some of those things that we would have to identify. Well, at the very least, we can do a caulking program around those windows.
It's not caulking. They're just
Just the windows themselves.
windows themselves are terrible. I mean, they're aluminum windows and they just transfer. You can stand 6 inches away and feel the draft.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's obviously something we'd have to quantify then. We'd have to get an idea and so forth. You know, interestingly, at the city of Cedar Rapids, this is very, very complicated, but it was a very historic building was very historic, and the federal government required that the city keep it that way. Yet the windows had been changed to aluminum, just like what you're talking about, like what you have around here. Some of them are drafty, but we had to leave them because they were considered historic for as long as they had been there. So we had to leave them. So we went through and we had to caulk the bejesus out of them and do the best we could with those so that we could tighten up the enclosure.
Isn't Cedar Rapids City Hall just a bigger version of this City Hall? Is that right?
Exactly right. It had a post office on the first floor, just like this has. It had a basement, first, second, and third, and the third floor. In that case, the third floor is where the courtroom was. And again, just a bigger version of this. It was about 68,000 square feet.
any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, thank you. I noticed a few of these options had what you call as a DOAS or dedicated outside air system. Some of the comments, I'd been in a project similar where prior didn't have one, afterwards did. I'd say the advantages there from a comfort level, from a health level for the occupants in the building spoke for themselves. And just a comment maybe a little bit on the price differential here. Yes, the baseline cost is less. It does not resolve all of the options. And I'd have to wonder long-term what the energy loss would be on that fix versus a fix that's going to get better AC throughout the building, better heat throughout the building. Do you speak to that just at all?
A conventional system is that you have, let's go with the furnace option. This furnace picks up, 6 rooms. One of the rooms is a conference room. The conference room needs a lot more ventilation air for people's comfort. So you have to size that air intake for the worst case condition being the conference room. So you're dumping energy into all those other rooms that don't need the fresh air. A dedicated outside system provides the right air for each room individually. A little more costly, but energy-wise, it's saving you because why you're not dumping wasted energy into a room. Or if some people cheat, they don't provide the right amount of air in the room that needs to be there for a workroom or a conference room or a break room or a council room. That's what the dedicated outdoor air system does. It makes sure that we balance it out so that we don't waste energy, but provide the right quality of air, outdoor air. Does that help out?
Thank you. Yeah, just trying to help explain that for those that, and I'm not an expert in the HVAC systems, but that was just one thing that I'd experienced, and it had a great impact on productivity overall. Something as small as that. The other thing I just wanted to comment really quickly on, you had mentioned, Mr. Barney, that when you came over, and Matt and I was one of the staff that you had met with, and talking about some of the building differences or the request on the first floor. And I'd say it would apply to second and third as well. I had made the comment, and part of it, I don't want to bring in the last year and the things that we've dealt with as a nation and world. But we picked up on some things that we really weren't set up here to handle the public. We had to close the building in order to maintain safety and egress and being able to function. We're in a profession or a position where we cannot be closed to the public. We can't close for months at a time or anything to that effect. We have, we're serving the public. And so I think when we have looked at that, or when I was looking at that, is trying to say, are there ways that we could do this? And the original plans with the post office kind of provided that model, we'll say. So looking at how can we have security for staff and the public that are coming into the building? How can we provide security for the documentation, other things that need to be protected? How can we make sure that whether it's this last illness or some other disease of the future, that we can still maintain functionality of government and protect everyone involved? And that was where some of those things we're looking at. And I know it changed up your perspective on the HVAC system, making sure things were zoned appropriately and everything to that effect. But But I'd say just to let the council and the public know, those are some of the things that we were considering, was not just fixing today's problem, but trying to look ahead and plan for the future issues that might exist as well. That's where some of the additional changes came from.
Other comments or questions? Phil, you've been intimately involved in this. Anything you want to add or comments that you have as an engineer?
Not right offhand, no. Sorry.
Okay. Just give you the opportunity. Okay, well then I think we'll conclude this portion and appreciate the very complete report and things to think about, and we'll talk with our staff, and I guess we'll ask for some direction for our administrative team to explore some options for funding, because at this point, we don't have that kind of money to do it without the outside help. So thank you very much. Good report, fellas.
Thank you from our team. Thank you very much.
Okay, item H.
Resolution number 141, 2021, approving an application and agreement for federal assistance airports coronavirus response grants program. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 141, 2021.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, similar to ones we've had prior this year, this is another wave of funding that is available to airports. This one in particular is for $32,000. It is available to be used for operational expenses at the airport, and there is no grant match required under this program. I was looking for council's blessing to proceed with the request for funding.
Any questions for Phil? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 142, 2021, authorizing the mayor to execute an easement agreement for construction and maintenance of public improvements for the CSO Blake's Branch Phase 8 Division 1 project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 142, 2021.
There's a recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Phil, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So this easement is for the new sanitary sewer that runs parallel to Blake's Branch. When they were building that trunk line, they kind of connected into some existing culverts back in the 1890s. And in this area, it makes kind of a weird jog under and around Birch. And so we have to jog outside the right of way in order to get around the jog in the existing sewer. So that's what this easement would be for.
Pretty standard engineering procedure then.
Yeah, pretty standard.
Okay. Any questions for Phil? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 143, 2021, purchase removable river wall panels from Flood Control America for a total sum of $142,000. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 143, 2021.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead, Phil.
Thank you, Mayor. So according to the most up-to-date flood profile from FEMA, we have to make some changes to our levees in order to get the required freeboard. And this is one area we were looking at. Put that picture up there. So this is the area we're looking at. It's upstream and downstream of the Market Street Bridge. The picture on the left is the section between the dam and the bridge, and on the right, you have the area from the south of or downstream of the Market Street Bridge. And so these areas are about 1 foot to 1.5 foot short now of the required freeboard. We're required to have 4 feet of freeboard in this area now instead of 3 because they're close to structures. So rather than jogging it up and down, we wanted to make something that would raise the wall up continuously across here. So the item we're proposing is it's a removable flood wall panel. So it's got steel posts and it's got aluminum stop logs, and they're gasketed. They'll ratchet down to the top of the wall. We sent them the plans for the existing wall. They bid this to match our wall. These are some installations. One's in Iowa City. That's around, I think, an art building in Iowa City. And then Coralville has miles of these walls. Ours won't be nearly that tall. It's only going to be 2 stop logs tall because we already have most of the wall there. But they're fully removable. If you see on the previous picture, you got a fisherman up there that fish over that wall. If we had something permanent up there, it'd ruin the fishing there, and that's not something we want to do. So the quote we got and what we're recommending is a system from Flood Control America. It costs $142,000, and we think it's the best system for raising this section of the wall and keeping access to the river from the parking lot and from the park area.
Any questions for Phil?
I just have one.
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
So with all respect to the people that are fishing there, I just want to make sure that $142,000 is a pretty good chunk of change. The life expectancy of these panels versus a permanent fixture, what's the comparability?
These will last for decades. They're not permanent out there. They're completely removable. So we'd have them removed. They'd be stored indoors and under cover. And
Okay.
so they'd last virtually forever. The plan is, once we get the bolt pattern down, is to have a railing system that would be installed for safety reasons. When the flood wall wasn't there, then when the flood wall is not needed, it'd be stored off-site in a building somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
And Phil, just for the council's benefit and public, this is part of the Corps of Engineers requirement to be sure our flood wall protection meets the requirements coming up for the new insurance maps.
Yeah, right. I mean, the options are this, you can raise it with a concrete wall permanently, or do nothing, and then we won't have levees anymore. So those are the 3 options.
Yeah, and Phil, I noticed it was a budgeted item, but any chance that FEMA or somebody would help with the overall cost at all?
I don't think there's grant funding available that quick of a cycle
Okay.
here.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 145, 2021, removing a special assessment applied to parcel number 00741-737-0010-000, a vacant lot on South Ward contained in resolution number 284, 2018, 267, 2017, 286, 2016, 268, 2015, and 291, 2014. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 145, 2021.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Good evening. You have the floor, Zach.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. This lot is a vacant lot located next to 526 South Ward. It's accumulated $4,462 in special tax assessments for delinquent mowing fees, and that includes interest and administrative costs. Rippling Waters Property Development seeks to acquire the lot by tax deed, and they would build a new single-family home on this lot. It's located right next to the Habitat for Humanity home build that's ongoing right now, and it's within a project area that Rippling Waters has identified for several upcoming projects. The resolution would remove these special assessments only if the property is transferred to Rippling Waters. If it isn't, then that would be because the owners paid the taxes, which would include these taxes. So it would free up a lot for development and produce ongoing tax revenue, and we would just have to set aside these assessed taxes that are likely to never be paid anyway.
Any questions for Zach?
Zach, is there a time frame that they would need to develop on it in the agreement?
There's nothing in this specific agreement. They are putting it on the list for the Homes for Iowa program, which is going to have a bit of a wait list, but they expressed that they were eager to build on it as soon as available for that Homes for Iowa program. We didn't put anything specific into this resolution about that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3184, 2021, amending Chapter 31.5 of the City Code of the City of Ottumwa, Iowa to allow privately owned or leased trash dumpsters or receptacles in city parking lots to add a new section 31.5 to 45. Recommendation passed the second consideration of ordinance number 3184, 2021.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Phil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is the second reading. It's an ordinance in order to standardize the process of allowing privately owned dumpsters onto public property, modeled on a similar ordinance in Cedar Falls.
Any questions for Phil?
Phil, do you know, I know Larry was here last time, so I'm asking a question that you weren't here for.
Okay.
But do you happen to know, one of the things that the SMID committee is working on is receptacle stations like these. So I was wondering if you knew if Larry or someone on staff had reached out to Main Street yet to talk about how that fits into the SMID plan that they were looking at.
No, I haven't talked to Larry about that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just if you could pass along to make sure we make sure that's lining up with what SMID's looking at, or make sure that way SMID knows what's going on so they can work on designing things that fit into what this ordinance would look like.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3185, 2021, amending section 32-73 of the City Code of the City of Ottumwa, Iowa for the purpose of addressing adjacent property owner liability for sidewalks. Recommendation passed the second consideration of ordinance number 3185, 2021.
Is there a motion?
With the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Phil.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the second reading of the ordinance addressing property owner liability for their adjacent sidewalk. Probably have to talk to the council or lawyers for details on the decision, but basically it provides a way for someone to point out a non-compliant sidewalk, and it gives the city, I guess, a structure for telling that homeowner to repair the sidewalk, and then for the city to go repair it if the homeowner decides not to do it.
Okay, any other questions for Phil?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Well, Phil, and I read this and it's kind of like, but this is the second reading. So I really missed the first reading as far as the complete understanding. But in years past, we tried to have residential sidewalk inspections.
Right.
And we did things such as you have so much time to fix it, and or we'll do it and it'll be on taxes or whatever. So basically that's what this is then, right? That,
This doesn't specify like a inspection timeline for the city to inspect it every so many years, but that
Right.
could be something the council wishes to pursue.
Yeah. But I could see my neighbor's sidewalk needing something, and I could contact the city, and they then would contact that neighbor to fix the sidewalk?
Yeah, right now we're not going to go out and find the sidewalks right now as
Okay.
far as this ordinance doesn't require us to do that. So I don't think we have plans right now, but if the council wishes the city to inspect the sidewalks, we could do that too.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay,
Say this is just a kind of a correction in our code to make sure that we're in compliance with the court case that had happened recently.
Okay, thank you.
ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3186, 2021, amending the municipal code of the City of Ottumwa, Iowa by repealing sections 2-270, duties and responsibilities of the city clerk, and enacting a substitute in lieu thereof. Recommendation passed the first consideration of ordinance number 3186, 2021.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, I will take
Phil?
this
Yes.
one here. Yeah, so essentially, we're looking to update the city code. The current code shows that to perform such other duties as required by law, the city council and the mayor. And in talking about when we had the review earlier this year and looking to see about having some of that revisions, and then talking with our attorney about how to make that change happen, we're looking to change that language to say, perform such other duties as required by law, his, her, or their supervisor, in addition to the city council and the mayor. So essentially, all it's doing in there is adding in the language for having a supervisor other than the city council. In this case, would be the city administrator. That aligns then with the updated job description for the city clerk.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions? Ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Item J on our agenda, we always give the public a chance to make comments to the council on city business. It does not need to be on the agenda, so if there's anybody that would like to address the council, now is the time to step forward. If you would be good enough to give us your name and where you live, we'd like to hear from you.
Hi there. Hear me fine?
Sure.
My name's Christy Munt. I live at 109 South Cherry Street, and I just am here to basically nothing about the city fireworks because I didn't get to see them because I was stuck in my house because it sounded like a war zone outside my home for the solid 2 weeks prior to the 4th of July. Those bombs that go off have nothing to do with our Declaration of Independence. And when I was a child growing up here, fireworks were illegal in Iowa. I just moved back here after living in California for 50 years. And in all those years, I never, ever heard anything like I heard over the last few weeks. On the 4th of July, it was 1:30 in the morning before they stopped. And I called the police 3 nights in a row trying to get this. You know, the ordinance says 10 p.m. And I can understand celebrating the 4th of July, but doing it every day, 2 weeks prior, and it's probably going to continue on because they bought it all at half price on the 4th of July. So I'm going to figure out how to do this, but I want to get a petition to go back to the way it was. We do not need to sound like we are in Iraq or Afghanistan to celebrate our independence from England. So this is my first time here. Plan on seeing me here a lot because I have attended city council meetings in all the cities I lived in California since I was probably about 30. So I like to be involved and know what my city is doing. And this is something that needs to change because that had nothing to do with the celebrating of our independence. Thank you very much.
Thank you for making your comments tonight, and I'll just add to that, I had, as I've shared with the council, a number of messages on my phone at home, emails, and messages here at the office. I think I had more complaints about fireworks this year than any time in the past. I would encourage you in your work as you do some research to write to your state senator and state representative and express this. It's a state law that you can buy and sell fireworks. We do set the ordinance as 4 to 10:30 on July 4th, and it certainly was loud in our neighborhood too. So I appreciate that. And for people who have animals, that seemed to be a real
I have
issue.
animals. They
Yeah.
were scared to death. And thunder shirts don't help them. One other thing, I did see in reading of the ordinance from when it was passed back in like 2017, that there were possibilities for cities to opt out.
Yes.
And if that's something that's a possibility, I will be doing research into that also.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for coming to the meeting tonight.
I would just echo, Mayor, if you don't mind, that even if the city says they're not allowed, we are not allowed to not allow them to be sold in the city. The state has taken that control away from the city. And so I know that there's not even, you're not even allowed to zone to where you can allow them to be sold. That right was also taken away at the state level. So
I need to work with the state.
yes.
That's-
So as much as the only control the city has is to enforce not allowing them to go off at times, but unfortunately we have no control over their sale or distribution.
And the police were so busy, they didn't have available officers to come. But, and then people see the police coming, they don't do it while the police are coming,
Exactly.
So it was a very, very frustrating.
Yeah,
I moved here for peace and quiet, and I worked on my yard all summer long and still have a lot of work to do. I can't even right now go out and enjoy sitting in my yard. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Two other items I want to mention for the general public, and again, council, these are things that come up routinely. Summertime with grass in the street. We do have an ordinance. You're not supposed to blow your grass into the street. It's dangerous for bicyclists and motorcyclists, and it also clogs up our sewers. So just remind homeowners to blow it into the yard, let it decay in their, or mulch it into their yard and do it that way. And lastly, I had the opportunity to walk with our city inspector on Friday, the Marion Street project, and people are getting a little concerned about the length of time it's taking to get that work done. However, after visiting with our inspector and some of the contractors, the problem is not the city. The problem is that we have some utilities who are not following through and getting their cables removed or replaced, and that really causes a problem. It slows down the entire project when you have people with backhoes that can't dig because they're cutting cables and pipes and so forth. So I want the public to be understanding and patient that the city is monitoring the best we can. We've notified all the utility companies, but there's not much teeth in the law as far as what we can do with the franchise. But we really want to keep the pressure on these utilities, especially, and I'll say it publicly, CenturyLink seems to be consistently the worst one that we deal with. And if it takes some public pressure to have them pay attention to us, we're going to put some pressure on them because they're holding up a very important street project right now. So, okay, with that, are there any other comments from council or staff?
Yes, please.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Myers.
Well, in the city where there's nothing to do, the saddle rodeo over the weekend, I understand went well. Since our last council meeting, we had the runway dedication, which went well. Balloon races had some weather issues, but still the overall activity. The C-130, Mayor, that came in from Little Rock, Arkansas, you had some personal conversation with Major Seth, and in fact, he was so pleased with the airport people and the organization that didn't he offer to come back for a future fly-in or something?
Yes, they would like to come back and do a flyover and actually do some demonstrations. They were very complimentary of our airport personnel and city as a whole. They thought they got great treatment both here and at the hotel. And we want to thank Vaughn Motor Company for providing some transportation for them. It was a great experience, and I appreciate the fact that we had the Iowa DOT director here to help us cut the ribbon, and I think we're getting some attention to our airport that's been long overdue. So,
Yeah, so thanks again to all the volunteers for all the wonderful things that go on in this city. Thanks, Mayor.
thank you.
That reminded me that speaking of volunteers, Babe Ruth World Series is still looking for more volunteers to help out with the event coming up in August. If you go to the Meet Ottumwa website, there's an online sign up, easy peasy to get signed up. Lots of different types of jobs to help with during the week of the World Series.
Thank you for that reminder, Holly. That's great. Anything else for the good of the cause? If not, I entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
6:44 PM. Thank you and good night.